Hi, folks. I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Calvert alongside Father Joe Grimaldi, and we would like to welcome you to a special edition of the Father Joe Podcast. My good friends, I have some great news for you. Star Lincoln introduces Shop Star Express. Swift, safe, and simple. Doing what we can, where we can. That's the Star Lincoln way. Go to starlincoln.com, browse Star's inventory online, order your vehicle from your home, and Star Lincoln takes care of the rest, including incredible financing deals going on right now. Then, Star Lincoln will deliver your new Lincoln right to your front door. Fully sanitized, it's that simple, so go online, starlincoln.com, check out the incredible lineup of Lincoln vehicles: the Navigator, the Corsair, the Nautilus, the Aviator, the MKC, and the Continental. Our service department body shop remains open between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday to serve your essential needs. Please call 248-354-4900 to schedule your appointment. Yes, your sanctuary awaits. Stars offering peace of mind and flexibility to their customers during these challenging times. Simply go to starlincoln.com. That's starlincoln.com. Well, you know why I call it Breaking News a Special Edition, don't you?
No, tell me.
You and I were talking about the fact that you had a chat with the Archbishop about opening our churches. Tell me how it went, sir.
Yeah, we're extending the meaning of chat. It's a Zoom chat. Okay?
So you did a Zoom with the Archbishop?
Not me alone, okay, the priest.
That had to be a lot of boxes all filled up.
Well, we have to, no.
Yeah.
It's not done that way.
Oh, it's not?
It's one way. It's
Okay.
one way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's the Archbishop, and then you have his assistants, and whoever is going to speak on a particular topic is there. I know we're allowed to ask questions through the email, but basically the churches are opening, but I don't want to give people the impression that Sunday Mass is going to be as they remember. We're kind of sliding into it because we're still not allowed to have big congregations get together. And so I suspect we'll probably have weekday masses. There's lots of restrictions that are going to have to be taking place, separating the people every 2 aisles rather than every one. Families can sit together. However, trying to monitor that is not going to be easy. You can only have 25% of the capacity of a church being used. And again, there's going to take some mathematical knowledge trying to figure out what that means for each church or the chapel and so on and so forth. Thought on the 19th, but in reality, people who are 65 and over are discouraged or not encouraged to come to Mass, because Mass, of course, the obligation for Mass is being suspended until September. So there is no, how should I put it? I hate to use the word sin, but what I'm saying is people are dispensed from the obligation to attend Mass until September. That means that the people who are used to having live stream Masses, that's going to continue for a while. It'll probably continue for a very long while. Meanwhile, I think all of the incidentals, I call them, are going to have to be worked out. Weddings and funerals can take place, but what has changed, you don't need to have special permission from the archdiocese to perform a wedding or a funeral. The pastor can decide that himself. Even the use of masks, all of those attending have to use a mask. The priest does not have to use a mask. Maybe when he's distributing communion, then he would have a mask. And the rest of the faithful, of course, they can't receive with the mask on. So what they do is they will be able to take the host from the priest and then temporarily remove the mask and put it back on. The other thing, too, sanitizing the hands before and after the service is de rigueur, as they say. So it has to be done. There's no exceptions on that. The other thing, too, is people processing to receive communion have to be 6 feet apart from any other person, which means also from the side pews, which means probably single file. However, since the cup is not allowed to be shared, there won't be a necessity for extraordinary ministers of the Eucharist, not until September, I think, when bigger numbers are going to be present. If that's the case, then they might use extraordinary ministers of the Eucharist, but they would have to undergo a special training before they actually do take place. I was so thrilled, despite the fact that I knew it ahead of time, that things were opening, as they put it on the news. The churches are opening on the 19th. Well, yes, so to speak, okay? But that's going to be for those who have just been received or just been baptized into the Catholic Church. They're going to be allowed to come to Mass at that time. I think probably a little bit more open with weekday Masses the week after that. And then I think slowly increasing the numbers as best they can.
We were really concerned about the fact the delivery of Holy Communion, the Lord's Supper, the Eucharist. Right. We were really concerned about that. And
I was.
Well, yeah. Yes, I know you were, and that's when we were discussing the fact that possibly the picks would come into play, where we would bring in our individual picks, and then that way there wouldn't be any touching in any way, shape, or form. In a way, you're going to have some people, Father Joe Grimaldi, who are not comfortable with you putting your hands in the ciborium and then placing it into hands. And I would think the reverse of that would be, I'm not so sure how comfortable you'll be putting that host in someone's hands.
Yeah, I think because of the nature of the virus, I don't think it's transmittable through food. It's transmittable very much so through those, I want to call them bubbles in the air when you sing or speak. I think if that were the case, I'm only rethinking the whole thing because, like you, I was thinking it would be impossible unless we had a very special way of distributing communion. But communion is still going to be distributed with a lot of precaution because there's got to be 6 feet difference. When the priest says body of Christ, he can't speak right into the people's face. They're going to be 6 feet apart. They'll respond through a nod, or they will say amen, then come up and quickly take the host, and so on. So if we look at what goes on with the preparation of food in a restaurant, because restaurants are allowed to sell food that people can pick up later on in the day, well, it's handled by so many different people, the preparation. Now, the other thing, too, with the Eucharist, we are not allowed to use gloves. So that's another thing that we have to be careful about. So we can't use gloves, but we're encouraged to be very, like right before the distribution of communion, we should be sanitizing our hands. And then, of course, right afterwards, sanitizing our hands.
I'm confused. Why can't you wear gloves?
Oh, no. As a matter of fact, we're not even allowed to give out the communion to anyone who is wearing gloves.
I don't know why. For me, that doesn't make sense.
Well, the host, by nature of the sacredness of the host, it's not given on the glove, and that's it.
There is, in fact, and it's interesting because you've talked about this before, probably the average age, wouldn't you say, that it's most popular with people in their 60s and 70s?
Yeah, I would say the early Masses for sure.
Who's basically discouraged from taking part in this right now? The person over 65.
Yeah.
That's disappointing in some ways. I know it's looking out for our protection, meaning my age group, and that's I'm 68, soon to be 69. Listen, I don't like seeing those stats. I believe it's Mayor Cuomo that does those stats and shows the percentages in the age groups. And, you know, when you get into the high peaks of 22%, it's basically people that are I'm right in that sweet spot of age 68, so
And for
69.
one reason or other, men are more susceptible than women on that.
Isn't that always the case? Isn't it all? They always got to put the burden on the guy, don't you think? Maybe it's because I don't know, maybe because we avoided doctors for so many years.
That could be too. I have no idea.
Well, it's a possibility, but it's good news. It's great news because you and I going back, it'll be 10 weeks on Tuesday since the order was put in place. In other words, when the church doors open on May 19th, it'll be exactly 10 weeks since Governor Whitmer put the stay home, stay safe, shelter in place mandate. You cannot leave home unless it's absolutely necessary. So,
well, California's extended that till the end of July.
It's turned out to be one of the most incredible times of our lives. But this is good news. We've got a good news podcast here that still relates to the coronavirus.
Very much so. I'm thinking, too, what about priests who are over 80? Are they not allowed to say Mass, or are they allowed to say Mass? Because, let's face it, that's much more vulnerable than 65. Yeah. And so if they're discouraging people 65 and over, what about 80 and over? I don't know. So that's going to be an interesting point.
So what you're saying is that it's possible that you've said your last Mass? Is that where we're going with this?
That's what I'm afraid of. I'm glad I did the Sunday Mass. I was the presider for the live stream Mass from St. Hugo's on Sunday.
How did you like that?
Oh, I liked that very much. I mean, that was my last Mass, as it were. Maybe, who knows? No, I hope not. I hope not.
Don't even think that. Of course, if you're talking about somebody being 80, you're not even 80 yet. So don't even.
Oh, this is the year.
Don't worry. Don't stop pushing my buttons, Roger. Let me tell you that right now. You're the youngest 79-year-old I've ever met. So that's
I don't
good.
know about that,
and they need you too badly. They need you too badly in the churches here in Southeast Lower Michigan. Too many people are waiting. The unfortunate thing is that we can't hug, shake hands, or do anything in terms of a welcome back. It's all going to have to be done with facial gestures and eyes. And
a lot of caution.
Yeah, and the eyes are mirrors to the soul. And, that people with sparkling eyes as they get to go back to the churches. And as I predicted, you said, well, I'm afraid they may not come back. Maybe they'll get too used to streaming. Well, perhaps they will. But I think many people, as I predicted some 3 months ago, will be desperate to get back to Mass in the church in that form.
They are. No,
yeah,
that's for sure.
No. So isn't that great news?
But they're in the wrong age group.
I'm telling you, folks, if I could plow through this little window in Zoom and crawl into his little window.
But you got to go through the Pacific Ocean.
He'd get a what for the likes he's never even seen before. Put him up. I'll fight you with one paw behind my back. I'll fight you with both paws behind my back. I got courage.
I love that voice. But go ahead.
There are so many different things. Let's recommend this, that people, if they did not get the email from the Archdiocese, to go online or Google the Archdiocese of Detroit. The entire package is there for you, some 15 pages for you to go through. It's a simple read. You'll find it fascinating. You'll find it enlightening. And I think you're going to be really happy just to be able to see some of the ideas that they've put forth, including, I wanted to mention this as well, maybe I did earlier, I really like the idea of the outdoor masses. I think that's got a really nice feel to it on a day sort of like today, only warmer, obviously, but a nice sunny sky with a Mass outdoors. How do you like that? Remind you of your days in Hawaii and Southern California, yeah?
And it's funny because that's where it would have been very possible, but it was never permitted. So now it's the opposite. It's permitted, but some of the churches don't have the expanse of land to be able to do that. Now, we're fortunate in areas like Bloomfield and so on, where there's a lot more land. And I just mentioned that because I'm more familiar with that, but I'm sure Novi has its own. But there are many churches that are limited as far as space is concerned, for outdoor space, I should say.
Like I said, again, folks, I recommend that you go online. We're making it unique to our area here in the Detroit Archdiocese. So and there are so many people listening all around the United States and the world, it's obviously going to be different. But I'm sure as a group, the bishops have talked nationally and internationally about how they're going to go forth with this.
Definitely, yeah. And of course, it varies according to region.
Well, I will say this as we get near the end. I certainly have more questions than answers, but most of the answers that I saw in this 15 pages were very simple and easy to understand. Do you think that people now will be in such a hurry to get back on a normal plane, normal track, that they're going to just overwhelm the churches with, we want to get married, we want to get married, we want to get married, we've lost somebody, we've lost somebody, we've lost somebody, and we've had his cremains here. Now we'd like to have the full funeral. I mean, don't you see scheduling becoming a very difficult area for a while?
To answer your question, honestly, most of the people have postponed at least a year. For example, the weddings that were supposed to take place in June and July and August, they've been postponed for a very long time. Some are trying to be sure they were going into a year from now. So they're waiting for next May, next June, next July, but they're canceling a lot. So I don't know what's going to happen. With funerals, if things get better and we're allowed a full number of people in the church, they will have memorials more so, but certainly not anything is scheduled yet. And the other thing, too, I foresee a little bit of a problem like restaurants are having. Maybe they're open, not yet, but they will be soon. Maybe they're open, but people are going to be afraid to go. They don't want to sit down in an enclosed space and have dinner with friends and so on and so forth. So I suspect that even though people want to go, as you say, are dying to get back into church, but by the same token, some are going to be afraid. Matter of fact, I have friends that don't go anywhere without sanitizing and doing this and running. And I mean, they're being overly careful about things, and they're afraid. And so this is why our prayers should be for those people who are panicking, those people who are fearful, that they can find peace in their daily lives. That's all I can say.
Well, you can say a prayer for us to wrap up the podcast. How about that?
Well, rather than a prayer, I thought about today.
Yeah.
One of the things I was fascinated by was what they call the paradoxical commandments. And I know that Mother Teresa used them, but she was not alone. There were a lot of other people that used them too. But basically they go like this, and there's 10 of them, just like the 10 commandments. People are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. If you are successful, you win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway. The biggest men and women with the biggest ideas can be shot down by the smallest men and women with the smallest minds. Think big anyway. People favor underdogs but follow only top dogs. Fight for a few underdogs anyway. What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. And people really need help, but may attack you if you do help them. Help people anyway. And lastly, give the world the best you have, and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway. God bless you all. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe Podcast.
We'd like to remind you to share the Father Joe Podcast with your friends. You can reach Father Joe at frjoepodcast@gmail.com, and you can find us on Facebook or say, Alexa, play the Father Joe Podcast. We look forward to seeing you next time.